Hi boys and girls. Today we're going to have two read-alouds. The first one that I'm going to read to you is called Happy Birthday, Martin Luther King. So as you know, Monday was a day off in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And so this book is going to tell you a little bit about who he was and why we celebrate him. Happy birthday, Martin Luther King. Now, you may know that a lot of people have heroes, and heroes are people that we look up to, people that we think are good and honest and strong and brave, and that we wish we could be more like. And Martin Luther King Jr. is actually one of my heroes. We're going to read about a couple of my heroes this week, and so I hope you enjoy learning about him. Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia. His parents loved him very much. So Monday was a day off. Martin Luther King Jr. Day is always on a Monday, but it's around his birthday. His birthday is January 15th, and we're in January right now. Martin Luther King had the same name as his father, except for one thing. His father was called Martin Luther King Sr. Martin was called Martin Luther King Jr. Martin went to elementary school, high school, and college in Atlanta. He was a good student. Later, he went to divinity school in Pennsylvania. Divinity school is where you would study religion. Martin became a pastor just like his dad at the Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta. They were both called Reverend, the Reverend Martin Luther King Sr. and the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. Martin's job as a minister was to help people in need. He visited sick people in the hospital and made them feel better. He asked people not to fight with each other. He said there were peaceful ways to solve problems. One of the big things that Martin Luther King Jr. is known for is asking people not to fight, not to be violent or hurt each other, but to solve problems in peaceful ways. And like his father, Martin led people in prayer and song. The Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. is famous because he helped our country change some of its laws. A law is like a rule. Once there was a law in some places that said only white people could sit in the front of a bus and that black people had to sit in the back. Martin Luther King said this law needed to be changed. Rosa Parks and other people helped him change it. Now all people can sit in an empty seat, in any empty seat they like. So the black people had to sit in the back and white people got to sit up front. But if a white person got on and there were no other seats, black people would have to stand up and let the white person have the seat. Once there were laws in some places that said African Americans, or blacks, could only use certain restaurants and drinking fountains. Martin Luther King and many other people helped change these laws. Now all people can share the same restaurants and drinking fountains. So if you look, this fountain says white and this one says colored. How would you feel if you thought that white people or people didn't want to drink out of the same fountain that you used? Probably make you feel like they thought they were not, that you weren't as good as they were, right? Yeah. Once there was a law in some places that said black children and white children couldn't go to school together. Martin Luther King and other people, including many very brave children, had this law changed too. Now black children and white children can go to school together. Martin Luther King had a special talent for leadership. When he spoke, people listened. Poor people, rich people, white people, black people, and people from all around the world listened when Martin Luther King spoke. Many helped him work, march, sing, and pray for justice. In the summer of 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. gave the most famous speech of his life. He gave it outdoors to 250,000 people who had come to Washington, D.C. to ask the president for jobs and freedom for black people. In his speech, Martin Luther King said he had a dream. His dream was that people everywhere would learn to live together without being mean to one another. So in our class, we've talked about how the slaves were freed in the 1860s. So that means that nobody owned them anymore. But still, in a lot of places, they were told what they could and could not do. So that wasn't really being free. So even though black people weren't owned anymore, they weren't free to go to the school they wanted to. They weren't free to go in the stores that they wanted to. So even though they were free, meaning nobody owned them as a slave, they weren't exactly free like other people in the world were. Martin Luther King Jr. was shot and killed in 1968. Because he loved poor people so much, he was given a special funeral in Atlanta, Georgia, where he was born. His body was put in a simple farm cart and pulled slowly by 2 mules to a cemetery. Thousands of people walked behind Martin in a sad, loving parade. On his gravestone were carved these beautiful words: "Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last." And those words are from his most famous speech. I'm going to link that speech below. If you'd like to listen, it is worth it. He was a very, very good speaker, and he made you feel what he felt. Martin Luther King wanted people to be able to go places together, share food together, and love one another in peace. Because he worked so hard for freedom and helped so many people gain it, we honor him every year on his special day. We call this day Martin Luther King Day, and we say to him, "Happy birthday, Martin Luther King." You know, boys and girls, in America, we have a lot of holidays. And those holidays are there to celebrate people who showed bravery and courage and honesty, and also to show special events in our past. You know, Martin Luther King Jr., for a lot of people, showed a lot of bravery and courage. He's a special person, and that's why we celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I do hope you'll watch the speech below. I know that a lot of it is very grown up, but I think if you've listened to the end, you'll understand kind of how he feels. And I hope you have a good day. Don't forget to check out Read Aloud number 2 below. Bye.